Hello, welcome to Z Global Dispatch. Today is Thursday, 2025. Stay informed, stay ahead, stay global. Today's news summary is EU affirms commitment to Ukraine. Peace without strength risks long-term instability, says EU leaders. The European Union has doubled down on its pledge to fund Ukraine's war effort for as long as it takes. Responding to growing debate over the feasibility of peace negotiations with Russia, the stance follows controversial remarks attributed to unnamed European leaders that a peace talks between U.S. and Russia is a threat to us all, sparking criticism from realist scholars like John Mearsheimer, who argue the West is prioritizing geopolitical dominance over diplomacy. Key statements from EU officials: EU Foreign Policy Chief, a premature peace that allows Russia to retain occupied territories would reward aggression and destabilize Europe's security architecture. Our support for Ukraine is not just about weapons, it's about defending the rules-based international order. Confirmed plans to allocate an additional Euros 3 billion in military and economic aid through 2025. Most of EU leaders believe that they can still win or put pressure on Russia to negotiate for their own benefit. A surrender is not peace. If we stop funding Ukraine now, we send a message that authoritarian regimes can redraw borders by force. Europe's future depends on resilience, not retreat. European Council President once said, "Russia's war is a threat to all Europeans." We will stand with Ukraine until its territorial integrity is restored. Based on a piece as a thready debate context, critics' perspective, realist scholars, including John Mearsheimer, argue that the EU and NATO refusal to push Kyiv toward negotiations reflects a dangerous prioritization of weakening Russia over ending bloodshed. Mearsheimer has repeatedly claimed that Western expansionism provoked the conflict and that prolonging it risks catastrophic escalation. EU counterargument: Brussels insists that halting aid would embolden Putin and endanger Eastern European NATO members, e.g., Poland, Baltic states, and undermine global deterrence against China and other adversaries. Funding the war. What's at stake? Domestic pushback. Some EU nations, like Hungary and Slovakia, criticize the open-ended spending, citing economic strain and advocating for diplomatic solutions. Global reactions. Ukraine's response. President Zelensky praised the EU's resolve, stating, "Our partners understand that compromise with terrorists is impossible." Russia's reaction. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov accused the EU of fueling a proxy war and warned of lasting consequences for European security. U.S. alignment. President Trump's cozying up to Russian President Vladimir Putin marks a significant departure from decades of U.S. foreign policy. For years, U.S. policies have been in place to isolate Russia over its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But the Trump administration is now poised to make a deal with the Kremlin to end the war without Ukraine having much of a say. Critics warn of escalation risks. John Mearsheimer's warning. In recent interviews, Mearsheimer cautioned that the Europeans' a maximalist approach could trigger direct NATO-Russia conflict or nuclear brinkmanship. The idea that Russia will accept total defeat is a fantasy, he argued. U.S. foreign policy has, for about 80 years, been based on a network of alliances and institutions that allowed the country to project power, to create zones of prosperity, to enjoy trade with like-minded partners, Applebaum said, noting that it extended mainly to Europe, but also worked in Asia. Trump is effectively signaling that he's no longer interested in hearing from European allies, Applebaum said, and that he's aligning with a power that is a daily threat to Europe. Conclusion. The EU's unwavering support for Ukraine underscores a deepening divide in global geopolitics. While Western leaders frame the war as a battle for democracy, critics warn that indefinite conflict could destabilize the world order. As debates over a peace versus victory intensify, the human and economic costs continue to mount with no end in sight. Historian and writer for The Atlantic Ann Applebaum says this departure from traditional U.S. foreign policy is radical, given that Russia is a daily threat to the rest of Europe. Follow Z Global Dispatch for ongoing analysis of U.S.-Ukraine relations and global resource geopolitics. Drop a comment below telling us what story gripped you most or what you'd like to see next.